working in the garage. Good news is, Jesse's car is gone. Great. Now, Bryan is here on leave, but he hasn't really been here working on his car. So, what have we got done? Well, not a lot, considering Jesse's car was here again and again and again, and it's like herpes, and you can never get rid of it. So, I picked up a Bosch LSU 4.9 oxygen sensor. And the good news is it comes with a really long harness. So I'm probably okay and not have to extend the wideband harness that goes to the Haltech ECU. Not a whole lot's gone on back here. I do need to remount the fuel pressure regulator. One of the things I did do, I don't know how well you can see this, so bear with me. One of the things I did was add a maxi fuse and remove the original Fiero's power distribution block. We also fitted a Miata battery. I use these on a lot of cars. I've done them on Subarus, Evos, anything I want to do a mini battery. And the reason why I go with a Miata battery is it's a real car battery, real car warranty, and you can get it anywhere. Top tip right there. Alright. So, yeah. I've been working on the wiring a little bit, as you can see over here. I'm just trying to get things bundled, removing Garth's butt connectors and vampire taps. So, yeah. There's a lot going on there. I'm not really a big fan of wiring, but I'm plugging along. Now today, what I'm hoping to do is get the dash mounted and IQ3 installed in the... Now this is just a test panel that Garth made. He's actually making a new one. But I want to go ahead and get it mounted, make sure all the wiring can reach, and get all that knocked out. So with that said, let's get to work. Alright everybody, welcome back to the next episode of the Honda K-Swap. My name is Steven Vincent. Over there is the Blur, and this is my own personal hell. Garth, while he was here, was nice enough to take notes as to what we were doing to get the K-Series to run in the Fiero. Luckily, with the, I can't even remember who we used, Hybrid Racing or somebody somehow. If I figure it out, I'll put it in the doohickey here. But we used a breakout harness for the K-Series, and that made my life so much easier. There's, I think, like 8 wires that we have to connect to get the K-Series to run into the Fiero. Actually, you don't even need that many connected. It's quite literally, we need ground, power, and switch 12 volt, and the car will run, which has been awesome. The hard part is tying it into the Fiero's chassis harness. So, I've already done some looking and figuring out. I've got the oil pump, or not the oil pump, the fuel pump working. Well, Garth did. So what I found is now I'm working on the cooling fan, and luckily, the Fiero and the Honda use the same trigger, which is ground, to trigger the relay up front to kick on the cooling fan. I'm not an electrical guru like Garth. He's an electrical engineer by trade. So I'm having some difficulties. I just posted on the Fiero page on Facebook asking as to why GM ran the yellow wire to A4 on the C500 on the engine side of the harness, but on the body side of the harness, I believe, which is called the C100, that the C500 plugs into, it's not pinned. Like, there's no wire. I don't know why they just ran it to it, but that's how it is. Hopefully that's somebody giving me an answer. But we'll get to that here in a little bit. So right now what I'm trying to do is figure out check engine light. We're running these nice surface mounted LEDs that are recessed into the dash that Garth 3D printed for us. Sorry about the fan noise. It is really hot. I've got the AC going, and I put AC in here. Yes! And I got the fan going, so it's actually pretty cool in here. But, where I was at. Okay, so right now I need to figure out, I don't have to do the TAC output because I've got the IQ3 I would like to run the check engine light. It says it's not used on the IQ3, so we could run our own separate little check engine light in the dash. Oil pressure warning light, we definitely want to add one of those. Working on fan control, like I stated, that's the orange wire off the breakout harness. I think I've got that figured out. And see, this is why I hate wiring. Now, somebody out there that knows electrical stuff and on these Fieros do these wiring harnesses are just laughing their ass off right now. And that's fair. Hey, fair is fair. I don't know, but I'm learning. I got the factory service manual. I'm taking notes. I'm trying to get this stuff figured out. So, once I move on from figuring out the whole cooling fan situation, I've got to take a look into the backup lights. Now, we need to pick up a fuel pressure. Let me rephrase that. I think I have to go look in the manual for the Haltech. I'm not sure if the race version, which is what we have with the IQ3, displays fuel. I think it does. And hopefully that we can go into the ECU and configure it, because we need, I think it's 0 ohms empty, 90 ohms completely full. If not, I'm going to have to get a fuel gauge. I want to add an oil pressure gauge, which is weird. I might be able to configure the IQ3 to read an oil pressure, because it's basically, we're just going to use a sensor that reads, 0 to whatever, and I think there's a way to configure that. Hondas are really weird. They have a 1-pin oil pressure sensor, and it only shows pressure. It doesn't tell you how much pressure. So I'm going to have to run a gauge. I like to actually see how much oil pressure I have. So that's another fun one. I'd be lost about this factory service manual. Haynes and Chilton's, they just don't go into kind of depth that the factory service manual does. So I've got the constant 12 volt connected. I removed the Vampire clamps that Garth used just to test it, and I've actually got that on a power. I removed the Fiero's factory distribution block, which goes just below the C500, and I put one off of like a Chevy truck or something that uses a maxi fuses. So, not only do I have the 2 fusible links that supply power to basically the car, I have the alternator and the starter and something else run off of the maxi fuse. So if something was to short out, that would blow, everything would be good. I'm trying. I'm really trying on this wiring, but damn! So, let's see, where are we at on the car? We have, let me just show you, because you probably just don't want to sit here watching me talk, right? So, well, number one, we got a new camera, so I hope you can tell the difference. As I stated before, we have the Willwoods and the parking brake calipers all installed. They're bled. So our brake system is done. This is the hell I'm working on inside the car. Trying to get that all figured out. I got to figure out how I'm going to mount the Haltech down in there, and the relays for the fuel pump, starter, and there's one more relay, and I don't remember what that one's for. But there's 3 relays. I got to run a vacuum. As you can just barely see the little nipple sticking off the back of the Haltech. That's for the built-in map sensor. I did get the dash installed. The IQ3, all that's mounted back up. As you can see, I have the light, or the pigtails that would go into the back of the instrument panel, and there is where I'm going to get some of my sources for, switch power, the dimmer to brighten and darken the gauges that we're going to run in the 3-gauge pod. I have to tap into that for turn signals, parking brake, door ajar, high beam, and I think that covers it. So we're going to run lights for all those in the dash, which is going to be a pretty sweet setup. Garth is reprinting the dash. We are going to have to move it up and over a little bit, because when you tilt the steering column like that, it actually hits the bottom of the IQ3. That didn't go work for me. So, yeah, that's the fun part. Now, Bryan hasn't been here. I have been working on the car steadily while he's out running around with his friends. Let me get this off this tripod. So I've been doing what I can by myself. I want to reroute the return side of the fuel pressure regulator's hose back to the fuel tank. that needs to be done. The whole harness has to come back off the engine and get bundled up. This is where we had to change the wiring for the crank sensor because we have a K24 sensor in a K20. And this is luckily a common thing that the K-Series guys do, and there was a nice write-up on what wires go where and how to swap them, and that's what we did, and boom, the car started right up. Again, thanks to Mike of Car's Garage. She's ready. All the suspension on. Shifter cables have loosened up pretty good, so there's nowhere near as much effort required to shift this thing. I put the stock shifter back on. Let me go around this side, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I may still change the pivot point. There's the pivot point on the shifter for when you put it in gear. I think to help with the ratio of the Honda, I might actually move this pivot point up on the shifter to give it more throw. Right now it's not horrible, especially now that I put stock shifter back on, because the short throw when I have this pivot point's actually moved further down. So that made it a lot easier to shift, and the gates are a lot better defined. The gauge cluster's all installed, looking all good. I don't have the battery connected, do I? Oh yeah, I do. Alright, y'all want to see her? Here we go. And she comes to life. Pretty sweet, huh? Technology is so awesome. See, it's got vehicle speed. See the VSS on there? AFR, boost. I'm guessing A2W. I wonder if he was running the sensor to run his air-to-water intercooler temperature. So there's some things we're going to have to reconfigure. Alright everybody, welcome back. We are working on the exhaust for the Blur. What we're going to do is tie in the Honda exhaust manifold header that Bryan picked up off of eBay. We had some 2.5-inch stainless laying around. This is just temporary. We're actually going to plug it in. We're going to tie it into the stock exhaust, which you can barely see laying right over there. Bryan is going to be doing the welding because, well, he's better at it than I am. Just don't tell him I said that. All right, B, you ready to hit it? Yeah, let's do it. All right, get on it. Clear. Alright, me and Bryan have been thrashing on this car. We ran into an issue with the clutch master cylinder. It is leaking. We made an exhaust and then it wouldn't fit. And we did a pretty good job on that exhaust too. So we got the oxygen sensor hooked up. We've got the map sensor hooked up. We've got the air inlet temperature hooked up. We got water in the system. So now it's the first test fire and hopefully she'll run in idle. Alright, Bryan, go ahead. It's in neutral, right? Alright, Bryan, well, what do you think of the build so far?
It'd be good if we got that clutch match cylinder in.
Yeah, we gotta get the clutch match cylinder, and then literally, that's the only thing stopping us from driving it right now. So, here's what we're doing. As you can see on the Fiero, we've got the stock V6 exhaust, kinda, sorta,
Not really hooked up,
mounted to the Honda engine. Now, Bryan keeps saying, oh, let's just straight pipe it, We had it running last night for, what, about an hour?
Yeah.
It was about 9 o'clock, and then he says to me, he goes, hey, Dad, you think it's a little late for how loud this car is?
It wasn't that loud. It wasn't that loud.
It was loud enough if you had to make that comment, right? Alright, so what we're going to do now, we're going to start it up, get the heater going, and we're going to try to burp that coolant system a little bit more. We got the nose down, the rear of the car up, and we're just going to try to burp the coolant system. So, Bryan, go ahead and start her up.
We're going to see if we can shoot some flames.
Yeah, they were shooting some flames last night. Sounds completely different. What? Alright, as you can tell, it is the next day. Bryan and I have got a ton of work done. As you can see, we got the exhaust actually routed nice. I can't believe how good this thing sounds through a stock V6 exhaust. It just blows my mind. We have a lot more work to do, but we're trying to get it done in the next day because we want to be able to drive this thing tomorrow as soon as the clutch master cylinder arrives and we get that clutch. It doesn't sound like a 4-cylinder. Alright, Bryan and I are buttoning up the Fiero. Now, we haven't done a whole lot of recording and video, have we, B? We just kind of been in that let's get it done mode. So right now what we're doing is Bryan and I cut out some angle so we can make a battery box for our Miata battery so it fits in the stock location. Bryan's just doing some trimming up after he's got it all welded together. So, once we get that done, we'll get the batteries here. Go ahead and let me get in your way. It'd be easier to flatten that off on the belt sander.
I'm already at the
Okay, once he gets that done, we'll get the battery installed in the Fiero. And as of right now, the only thing stopping us from going for a drive is the clutch master cylinder, which will be here sometime tomorrow. Which, by the time you see this, we will already have done a live video of us going for the first drive. So we'll either pass or fail, one of the two. So yeah, we're just gonna finish buttoning up this, get the battery reinstalled, and call it a night. We've been putting in some hours. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.